transformative is the type of conversation that we had on today's episode. We will have on today's episode. I met with Jethro. He's the CEO founder of Ritual Ads. Super cool company, super cool story, massively successful. Conversation was insane in the sense of his backstory and how things came to be and just his perspective on life. There's nothing that I can do to further cue it up other than just giving you the opportunity to listen in on the conversation and hear from Jethro himself, and hear about his perspective on the advertising industry and marketing in general, and how wild it's going to be for us all and the role that we all can really play in the future. So I hope you enjoy. This is a special one for me. And without further ado, let's get into the conversation. All right, Jethro, thank you so much for taking the time with me. I know today's going to be a great conversation. One, because your company is very interesting. But before we dive into that, I want, for the listeners that are listening in, or for the people that follow the show, I want to give them a sense of, something that's like five senses. So put me in the moment, or give us a sense of what that was like to be in the room with you, or wherever you were on the subway, outside getting a coffee, the moment that the famous Reebok commercial really started to take off and really started to make a movement, and all of the figures and things selling out and all that other stuff. What did that moment feel like for you?
As a founder, you've got your babies, right? And so it is one thing to go after an idea, a dream, a vision. But when that moment when an idea or a vision actually comes to fruition can be a little bit exciting, I'll be honest. So I remember that day, it was September of 2025. You work so hard for these moments, and you
Yeah.
you trust and believe at one day they'll come. I was scrolling through my feeds, and you start to see, on the social media side, how people are responding. And you never really know when you put a piece of creative into the world, although we've got a lot of data to support that it's going to be widely embraced. But
Yep.
there is that level of unknown, uncertainty,
Sure.
and potential risk whenever you're going out with this kind of a broad launch.
Yeah.
And as we started to see the comments come back, and people really felt like they were living in Angel Reese's shoes for the
Yeah.
first time. They were identified with her, and more and more people would share it, would comment on it in inspiring ways. We do happen to use AI through all of the projects that we produce at some level, and there had been a lot of backlash to AI from like the Coke commercials and all of these
Yeah.
other examples where the audiences at large full scale rejected. And so you never know how that's going to work. We have a lot of tools that we use to prevent against it. But it's really that moment when you start to see audiences fully embrace this work that that you've put a lot of thought and energy into. There's nothing like it, and there's really no words to describe it. And I physically got goosebumps
That's
at that
awesome.
moment.
That's super cool. I mean, definitely going to link it so that people can check it out if they haven't already seen the commercial. But it is super awesome. So okay, so that moment passed. So walk me through a little bit about kind of how you got there. Not necessarily specific to that commercial, but I know that you had been in our preview conversation. You've been doing a lot of work to get to the point where you have like a scalable infrastructure to be able to support big productions like that. So tell me a little bit about kind of how um, you know Ritual Ads has grown over time and decisions that you've had to make that may or may not have led to that moment and the success there.
No, it's great. So I got started 25 years ago. I was working on the AI and video sciences lab at Dartmouth College.
Okay.
And after graduating there, I started working on commercials for Fortune 500 brands. We were doing commercials for Apple, Adidas, American Express, large brands. And it was frustrating because at the time it would take well over $1 million, months and months of time. And at the end of that whole arduous production process, spending 14-hour days with 100-person crews
Yeah.
and spending all this money, you would then ship it out to post-production and then finally to television, and
Right.
then you'd wait and see,
Yep.
right? And sometimes the stars would align and everything would work out, and you'd go out and drink champagne and be happy, but more often than not, industry-wide, you're talking about a 40% success rate, which is
That's
abysmal.
crazy. Yeah, that's
And
very small.
and so I always thought there's gotta be a better way,
Yeah.
um, for this process, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how we could code our way out of it.
Mhm.
Although what I did learn was how to make a mean cappuccino to keep the crew caffeinated while they spent long nights away from their families.
Nice.
And then I wound up as the youngest, board member and vice president of the Producers Guild of America, which represents 8,700 producers of film and TV and many in commercial content as well. And in that role, I started to realize that I wasn't alone in terms of my frustration with this creative process.
Yeah.
So, a few years back, I started to see that the technology had finally caught up, where yes, we could do it in a fraction of the time and cost, but it became more and more apparent that we could get even better results.
So the
Usually,
quality from your perspective, from like your creative lens, like you when you say the technology caught up, is that you noticed that it was the quality of the output was significantly better? Is that what you mean?
yes, and that
Yeah.
we could not just match the traditional method, but we could exceed the both the performance, the brand stories that we were able to tell, the cinematic stories,
Yeah.
we could exceed what we could do with the traditional processes. And usually you get 2 out of 3, right? You get faster, better, or cheaper.
Sure.
This was one of those unicorn events where we could get all 3 at the same time. And to me, that was really exciting. And that's when I decided, okay, we need to launch a new company that's AI native, that's really leaning into this technology, but doing it in a way that empowers creatives on the
Mhm.
brand side, on the agency side, and creatives at large, using, top talent, tech,
Sure.
taste, and all of those things that are needed, being able to apply all of those resources for these large scale brands. That was the premise that we set out with,
Yeah.
and then it was really exciting to start to get traction with, the Reeboks of the world. On the heels there, we work with many household names, Shopify, just a whole host of major brands and A-list talents.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting when you have this idea in your mind, you work, from putting blood, sweat, and tears into something
Of
over the
course.
course of a long time, and then all of a sudden the team comes together and it starts to take flight.
Yeah. You're beyond that sort of the well, do you feel like you're beyond that tipping point? You're starting to get to critical mass. You're starting to get to that point where it's like you have so much momentum behind you. Because from the outside, looking in, people that are, come from maybe a creative background or even a technology background, you've hit a lot of the milestones. Like you've had a ton of crazy, awesome accomplishments already. And it sort of feels like you're just getting started. And I'm curious, do you feel the same way? Is that how you would classify it? And you feel like you got that momentum that can carry you forward a lot now?
Yeah, I had a mentor that shared, when you're green, you grow, when you're ripe, you rot, right? So I try to keep that and hope that I'm never fully ripe. I feel like, to your point, we are just getting started, and
Sure.
the best is ahead of us. We're really proud of what we've been able to do, the brands we've been able to help, the talent we've been able to support and empower, and the technology we've been able to create. But really, to your point, the best is yet to come, and it's just really an exciting moment, not just in this industry but across industries in this time in human history.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about like what is your weekly priorities look like? What is some of the how do you balance this now where you have really big clients coming in, really big engagements coming on, and you have a really strong infrastructure that supports that. What is your sort of workload balance, and how do you operationally manage all this stuff now that you're kind of ascending into this, you're a big player now?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I believe we're as small as we'll ever be at the moment.
Yep.
But to your point, our company is called Ritual Ads with a
Yep.
R, and it's called Ritual Ads with a very intentional purpose. We believe that rituals are actions that are repeated, that are embedded or imbued with stories
Yeah.
and meaning. And we take pride in our rituals, not just on a weekly basis, but on a daily basis. So just from a personal development standpoint, I aim to get up at 4:30 every morning.
Okay.
These are my daily rituals, and they're meaningful for me. I put my health first, so I'll be at the gym by 5 a.m.
Nice.
I'll do a 2-hour workout, and that
What's your
includes,
workout?
it involves a strength training,
Nice.
and then it's like exhausting the body and focusing and taming the mind.
Yep.
So I'll do elements that will either heat the body or cool the body in ways that are uncomfortable. To be able to intentionally put myself in uncomfortable positions from the get go
I
of the
love it.
day, so
Yeah.
that the rest of the day feels easy.
Nice.
And then it's a matter of feeding my mind, whether I'm listening to audiobooks or um, doing connections with people, connecting with people early in the day,
Yeah.
or whether I'm doing even incantations, what I call them. So it's feeding my mind with my own voice.
Yep.
So feeding my own voice and intentions, uh, and being proactive with that from the outset of the day. Those are my morning rituals. And then I'll begin early, stay up late, and it's exciting because it's mission focused, and passion infused, and
Sure.
that makes work never work.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
Work
like it.
is fuel.
Yep. Absolutely. So, you're preaching to the choir, from my perspective, and I kind of want to double click into that a little bit. As you are, that sense of you're getting into a good groove, you have your workouts, you have like kind of your ritual, not to, no pun intended. But as people, what does that look like when you have, life events that come along? How do you kind of maintain that balance of, I'm super mission focused, I'm super driven towards the next milestone, and growing this? um, do you ever get the sense that you feel like you've lost some of the parts where you can just totally unplug and keep recreational and not be building, or do you also have a system to manage that?
Yeah, so I like the question, and I like the intent behind it. What are those life events that can throw you for a loop? Because it's
Yeah.
all well and good to have this master plan. I had another mentor that said, "Man plans, God laughs."
Yeah.
The idea is that
That's a
there
great
may
one.
be something very different in store for you than you think should be the plan.
Sure.
And I also had another mentor that said, well, you don't control events, but control the meaning that you ascribe to events,
Hmm.
and you control what you do in response to that meaning.
Yep.
So, as an example, about a year and a half ago, we lived in the foothills here in Los Angeles of a little neighborhood called Altadena,
Yep.
and there were intense winds that night. It was a Tuesday night, and then I had done some work and had heard that there was a fire brewing 3 miles away. And
Sure.
I had done some work in fire zones. I thought, oh, if you've got 100-mile-hour winds and fire, there's a chance something could happen. You never really think that something like that is going to impact you, but just to be safe, my wife was scared mostly because we had on the roof, we had these some of the like roof shingles were coming up, and it was just starting to become really loud on the roof.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she was like, let's get out of here." So we took our passport, and I said, "Honey, why don't we take both cars
Yeah.
and 1 day of clothes?" So we left, and then the next day, we heard that that the fires really did take over. We thought, no big deal. We'll come back in a couple days. Yeah, it'll be a little sooty and ashy, but we'll get back there. And then I remember that moment when a neighbor of ours who we hadn't talked to in a while. There was a
Hmm.
little bit of a conflict there, but
Sure.
she texted my wife, and my wife told me she just texted, and we were like, "What? What's she texting about?" And she texted us a photo of what looks like just an empty lot with some flames in it. So it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
still just small flames. And then she said, "You look closer, and we saw, oh, that's our steps to our front porch." And she said,
Jeez.
"Honey,
Jesus.
we lost everything."
Yeah.
And those moments, I get chills now just remembering it. Those moments will bring you back to your training or your rituals, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough that I've been training that I could be conscious of the narrative, the story that I wanted to hold in that moment, knowing who I wanted to be and become
Hmm.
for my wife, for my daughter. I have a 9-year-old daughter. But nothing can really prepare you for that moment when you find out that you're essentially homeless,
Yeah.
with no access to any of the things, material things that you've gotten over 43 years of life.
Yeah.
And so that was a really exciting moment. It may sound counterintuitive, but
Sure.
the idea that, oh, this is what I've been training for my entire life. How can I manage the story I'm telling myself to help become the father and the husband that my family needs in this moment now?
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, what are the questions that I would ask myself? Is this the end, or is this the beginning?
Hmm.
Am I a victim or a victor?
Sure.
And based on the answers to those questions, I could start to move forward in a way that could impact, not just my family, my family's family, but could really impact, um, I hope, billions of people around the planet, because in that moment was really the launch of my company. I thought, from these ashes we will rise, we'll build back stronger and more intentionally than ever before. And that same year, within a matter of months, we launched what's now known as Ritual Ads.
Damn. Dude. One, thanks for sharing, because that's an incredibly intense period of time for you and many others that suffered during that time period. And two, that's wild that you had the foresight, or you both had the foresight to get out, um, and the impact that that must have had on your family. I also have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I can't imagine going back to them and saying, guys, we don't have a house. Like I can't imagine what that was like. So that's unfathomable for me to even comprehend. So the fact that you went through that and then built a crazy company on top of that just speaks to the to your resolve. And the way that you approach it is quite refreshing. Looking at it as an opportunity to be an optimist and think about it on the other side. Do you find that that comes naturally to you in all things in your life, of like looking at this, not only as a holy shit that just happened, but like, hey, uh, I can be intentional about this. And is that, has that sort of always been that way, or did you have to grow into that?
I think it's all about training and ritual. Like, what are
Sure.
you going to repeat? Like, no, it doesn't come naturally. Weeds grow naturally. It does grow through cultivation. So now
Sure.
it's a habit. It's a ritual. It's my center of gravity. It's who I am. But that's not, that's not necessarily easy. It's based on waking up every morning at 4:30, doing a marathon. I never run a marathon, and I was like,
Sure.
okay, let's try to do this, not because I wanted to win some prize, but because I wanted to reclaim an identity that I could have for myself that
Yeah.
wasn't, that wasn't broken or lost, but that was, who am I? Oh, I'm someone that follows through, that takes the next step, that does it when it's hard, that does it especially when it's hard.
Yeah.
That kind of training, those kinds of habits, those kinds of rituals make meaning in our lives. And that meaning drives an identity. And that identity is who shows up in the moments that matter most.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when you're building a team around you, um, when you have engineers working for you and people that handle sort of the nuts and bolts of building a company and building a team, how do you take to I'm not necessarily looking on the like how do you assess them, but more so how do you instill that so that maybe they emulate that as part of as their teams grow. Like how do you instill that type of culture amongst your team? What's the behavior patterns, or what does a Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. look like that fits that like
So you're
culture?
smart to ask these questions. There's research that I imagine you might be aware of that's Harvard backed research that says that culture has a 754% ROI over the course of 10
Yeah.
years for companies.
Yep.
So culture is really important. They say this is from the Culture Code, that book, and
Great
uh,
book.
and it says that that culture is formed in a number of ways. It talks about the humility of leadership. That it's counterintuitive, but by sharing something that you messed up on as a leader, can actually create an even more successful and cohesive culture in the team. And then I think that the narratives or the stories that we tell ourselves about our own lives, but also the expected and unexpected wrenches that get thrown in our way whenever we're going about the course of business.
Yep.
Our teams are watching us and how we respond to challenges and emulating that. And so being, not having to be perfect, no one's perfect. And even that, I think, in and of itself is something that can be sort of caught
Yeah.
culturally, is that we don't try to be perfect here. But we do, the best that we can with the tools that we have. Oh, and by the way, here are some other tools that have worked for me in my past. And here's some stories about how I applied those tools. Those kinds of stories can help others, I think, catch the kinds of cultural moments that we want to infuse our organizations with.
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. So talked a little bit about your culture and a lot about kind of your philosophy. I'm going to slightly shift gears. So with the podcast, we talk about second order thinking a lot. So what's the second thing that you think about after something happens? And I'm curious around like the creative engine that you built, your proprietary information, or the proprietary engine that you decided to build instead of buy or assemble and then kind of manage. So I'm curious to get the thinking that went into that direction of saying, hey, I'm deciding to invest, and then shit, we made a decision to invest. Now, what were the things that like kind of came out as you were going through the process of building this out for yourself and your team? Can you talk a little bit about any of that?
Yeah, so we set out to build the world's most advanced creative cinematic engine.
Yep.
First, to build it for brands to be able to tell their stories at scale, because I believe that the stories we tell ourselves scale, and the stories that brands tell scale to billions.
Sure.
And so, in terms of impact, that becomes really exciting if you can shift a brand story from getting in the culture to giving to the culture.
Sure.
That becomes really exciting. So we set out to create a creative engine that would create cinematic, creative, at the speed and scale of software, but really leveraging the best of Madison Avenue with the best of Hollywood narrative, billion-dollar cinematic storytelling with the best of Silicon Valley scale,
Hmm.
and to do that all within one end-to-end creative engine. So this has implications, by the way, far beyond 30-second ads
Yeah.
for connected
It's
TV that you
huge.
might see. It turns out there's a growing field of medicine called narrative medicine. So it turns out that narrative stories can actually cure problems
Hmm.
that a person has. We know this from going to the movies. We're in a fight with our spouse. We go to a movie, we watch a fight resolved on screen. All of a sudden, we know how to resolve our problems
Sure.
better. That's
Sure.
a given. But it turns out that those same stories can actually cure problems in the body, and in some cases, documented cases that can't be explained by medical professionals of curing cancer. So this is a little bit woo woo. This is
No, it's
getting out on the
fascinating.
edges, right?
I'm on
But
the edge of my sheet. On the edge of my
um,
seat.
but if that's the case, cinematic stories are the most powerful kinds of stories we as humans have ever created.
Sure.
So what if we could give you an experience of love, truth, joy, abundance, health that lasts not just while you're engaged with the cinematic content, but throughout the course of the rest of your life that's trained on your unique data? And what if we could deliver that experience to billions of people across the planet? To me, that's a really exciting, big, hairy, audacious 10-year
Huge.
outcome
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
worth going for. So yes, we're building it out, improving it on the short form for brands, but that's the larger vision that we're involved in, and that's why when we set out to build the creative engine, we were told it was going to take 20 people, over $1 million,
Yep.
and it wouldn't be done until 2027. So we're excited to say it's already done.
Yeah.
So we have a creative engine already built. We have real paying customers already online, and more coming online on a regular basis.
That's That's awesome. That's super cool. Super cool doesn't do a very good job of articulating it, by the way. But
I think
I'm
it does.
finding myself considering the sheer amount of work that has gone into building this company and facing the adversity that you faced when it started and everything else that's going on there. What would you, I guess, looking back on it now, is there anything that you would do differently, or would you say this was the exact charted path, good, bad, or ugly, that it should have gone down, and you wouldn't have changed it in any way?
It's a great question. So I'm even doing it in this moment now. I'm conscious that I'm deciding the story I'm going to tell myself
Yeah,
about what happens. I
yeah,
believe that the mind is, it distorts, generalizes, and deletes, right? So, given that, the answer to any question is going to distort, generalize, or delete. So, which
yeah.
distortion, generalization, or deletion do I want to pull out of the hat, right?
Which
In
one
this
is it going to
moment.
be? Yep,
I believe, I choose to believe that every moment happened in the exact way that it needed to. I suppose um, the only part that I would go back and sort of tell myself is that, you're in the right place. You're doing exactly what you need to be doing. You're on course,
yeah,
because the mind also is addicted to looking at fight or flight or fear, or like,
yep,
what is going to put this animal here at risk of living,
yep,
and is addicted at to finding and identifying things that are going to put us at life or death risk, and most of it is 100% hallucinations, right?
sure,
Especially today, like there's very few things that are truly life or death. So
Sure.
I suppose just reminding ourselves, myself, in each and every moment that this isn't life or death, that this is truly a gift. The only thing that we know is, that we're not going to live forever. The only thing certain is death. So, given that, it's all a matter of the journey we take
Yeah.
in pursuit of our death. So we might as well enjoy that process, right?
Might as well enjoy the ride to the inevitable end.
Yeah,
That's that's great and morbid. But I appreciate the
that's a correct
Yep, that's
description, I
great.
believe.
Yep, fantastic. So, man, I'm curious to get just your general perspective on. I know that Ritual Ads is a transformative organization, to say the least. But just generally speaking, as I know many people in the creative industry, and I know many people in that are in the marketing side, that is, the creative side and all that other stuff. What do you think the work that you're doing today will do to transform that role? And that's not a clickbait question that says that AI is going to take their job, but more so, how do you think that it's going to transform the way that we develop creative and the way that we tell the stories? Like, I'm sure that you have perspective on that, as you're the architect behind it. And I mean that in the sense of the architect, like in the movie The Matrix, the guy in the white room, like with his hands together, like he's the one that put it all
Blue
together. Like
pill or the red pill?
exactly. So what do you
Choose
from
wisely.
from your architectural perspective, what do you think? What do you see this industry looking like in the next 36 months?
Yeah, so I believe that we are co-creating the future together, right?
Sure.
I don't think it's written. I think you and I and everyone who's listening to this is being called at some level to lead in this space because it's going to impact everyone.
Hmm.
There's no world in which AI disappears and it's going to impact every industry. I guess I'm comforted by what I've seen in the world, which are that there are endless problems.
Sure.
Now that may sound, doom and gloom, but it's actually very comforting because problems are opportunities, and human time is incredibly valuable. It's the most valuable thing I believe
Yep.
that we have as humans. So, do we really want our fellow humans' time to be taken by jobs that are not needed?
Hmm.
I, I I have my own answer to that, but I'll put that to your audience as a question. Like,
Yep.
is that actually ethical to allow jobs that don't need to be done to allow real people to spend their waking hours doing them?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that is no, we don't believe that human life should be taken up by jobs that aren't needed. That's really exciting because there are so many problems, higher level problems that need to be solved
Yeah.
in this world. And as long as there's problems, there are opportunities for people and there are callings for people to do meaningful and even more impactful work in solving our most pressing problems. And that's true of um, AI and ad tech and MarTech and SaaS. It's true in across the board. It's true in
Yeah.
all industries and all areas. So let's solve hunger. Let's solve homelessness. Let's solve all kinds of problems. Let's solve cancer. Let's solve problems in the world, and
Yep.
let's not push buttons anymore. Let's not do things that don't need to be done, but let's do things that are meaningful for us, that impact people's lives, that make a change, and let's have fun in the process.
Nice. By far the best answer. Well, I think, one, this has been a transformative conversation for me. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking and sharing your experience. And in the final sort of closeout here, I'm curious to hear what you would say to the 20 something, 30 something entrepreneurs that are listening in, that are, they had a bad week or they had a bad day, and they might need that sign that the next step is something that they've been thinking about, or whatever that moment might be of a little bit of a lull. What would you say, or what is something that you've told yourself in similar moments to get through that, and we'll end on the Jethro's your perspective on how to get out of the rut.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, I trained for a marathon. I was never a runner by any stretch. I was like the slowest runner in my class. I could
Yeah,
barely finish a loop around the track. Everyone would laugh at me and mock me. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to try to run a marathon. And when I was training for a marathon, the ritual that they gave me was okay, this is how the mindset of running a marathon is. You don't want to feel like you're pushing against gravity. You want to align yourself with natural forces. And the natural forces, your body actually wants to break its fall.
sure.
So if you can, in those moments when it's, especially in the moments when you're challenged, you swing your arms, but you also lean forward. And rather than forcing your body to take a step, allow your body to stop you from falling by just leaning forward and
Okay,
continuing to lean forward. And if you do that one foot and one step after the other, 27 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles later, you're at the finish line and you get to celebrate and you get to be excited. And in those moments, of who are you, it comes back. Oh, I'm someone who takes the next step, especially when it looks impossible, is hard, everything is breaking down. I'm that one that takes the next step and breaks my own fall.
nice. Lean forward. I like it.
Lean
Excellent,
into it.
Jethro. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. We'll make sure that everyone has access to your guys' website for ritualads.com, and people can check you out. Make sure we'll share all of your links so people can follow and get involved, or watch and share and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to having you back someday. We'll hear part two about the crazy impact that you're having in the future of medicine, and everything else that you were talking to. And I know it's going to be an awesome journey. So I'm thrilled to get to be a part of watching it.
Thank you, Nate. And what a positive and impactful podcast you've been able to create here. So I
Yeah,
appreciate the opportunity.
absolutely. All right. We just listened to the conversation between Ritual Ads CEO Jethro and I, talking through the ad agency or the ad industry, and how digital technology and AI is really transforming it, at the sort of Venn diagram between Hollywood and Silicon Valley, and so Madison Avenue. All of these things kind of coming together. He's got Martha Stewart as a collaborator. He's got big names in big industries and big everything, and the dude is one of the most humblest guys I've ever met in my life. So be sure to check him out, support Ritual Ads, and connect with him on LinkedIn. And I hope that you found this episode of Second Order Podcast really insightful from the second step. Like the man's house burnt down, and the second thing that he thought about was, how can I be the father and the husband to my child and wife in this moment? And that is the peak for me of what second order thinking should be. So with that, please share and with somebody that might need to hear this conversation, and hopefully it's as transformative as it is for me, for you, and you enjoy. And I'll see you on the next one of the Second Order podcast. Thank you so much.